Tuesday edition of the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and we have a great show. WWE returns Saudi Arabia this weekend for their Crown Jewel event. Logan Paul steps in the ring to face the man at the top of the game, Roman Reigns. Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar go to war, and Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross might settle their differences inside of a steel cage. We have the whole show to talk about that. In other international affairs, Shinsuke Nakamura will return to Japan to face the Great Muta, thanks to the Forbidden Door. This and so much more next on this Mic Drop Tuesday. Welcome to Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Yeah, it is a Tuesday. I hope everyone enjoyed their Halloween ventures last night. We decided, hey, everybody's going to be out trick-or-treating. Let's wait till a Tuesday. We had a lot of people listen in last week when it was on a Tuesday, which reminds me that I need to do a few shout-outs before we get into the show. And so if you don't know, we have YouTube, we have Spotify, we have Facebook, we have Instagram at Drop the Mic Wrestling. You can follow our social media accounts to stay up to date. But YouTube and Facebook, you put in comments while we do the show live, and you should have your comments pop up on the screen. And then after I was off air, I went back to Facebook and checked my email, and a lot of people didn't have their comments showing up because Facebook and StreamYard disconnected. I received another email the day after. So shout out to Elizabeth Davis, aka Mom, who asked me about which shows have been my favorite: AEW, WWE, indie shows. And not much can top an 18th birthday event where I got to manage Cameron Grimes, who I was for Halloween last night, and Brad Attitude. Isaiah commented several times he doesn't think that Dominic will ever win him over, but I think it's going to happen. And Matt Cosgrove thinking that Regal's going to turn on Moxley and cost him the title. He tells me to take it to the bank, and I don't know. I don't see Regal turning on the Blackpool Combat Club or Jon Moxley anytime soon. But let's get into it because we have Crown Jewel this weekend. Usually I will do a preview episode if we're back on having some connectivity issues. It's everything, right? So with we got some comments going already. We got the Camper Report. What's up? Ben, I am going to be on Ben's show tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's a Wednesday. It'll be at 10:30 Eastern time, which I think is maybe 8:30 his time. He's a couple hours back. He's a big San Francisco 49ers fan, so we got to talk about how his team took away Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers. Isaiah, no way that Regal turns. I agree. I don't see that happening, but it'll be quite a time. And then Hunter Davis, did AEW or WWE put on the better, more enjoyable live event? It was different, right? So I went to AEW's Fight for the Fallen last summer. And then I went to Raw, not this past Monday, not last night, but the week before when it was in Charlotte, my first ever WWE event. I feel like AEW had, let's be honest, like AEW had better wrestling from start to finish. You knew you were going to see all your stars. That was the one letdown with WWE is I didn't get to see Braun Strowman. I didn't get to see Edge. I didn't get to see Roman Reigns, like those guys, but you got to see JBL. So who can really complain in that regard? So WWE's production is top notch. Like I would love to work for their production, but it would just be brought down because of how good they are at what they do. So I would say an enjoyable live event if you're going for wrestling, AEW. If you're going to be entertained, which that is the WWE showbiz, go to WWE. It's a good time. And we got to get into this Crown Jewel event that happens this weekend. Again, usually we do a preview video, but this show starts at noon. The only amount of time I have between, it's now, because tomorrow I'm going to be on the Camper Report. Thursday, I got work. And Friday, we got Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, WWBG. And then I have my other work. So we're really getting our Crown Jewel preview today for the special Tuesday edition of the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. And let's just go ahead. Let's just go ahead and knock out this Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. They're saying that Logan Paul only needs one lucky punch. Here's my issue with it. Okay. I'm going to explain why it's happening. Why are we getting this match between Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns? One, they don't have a lot of challengers for Roman Reigns. Two, it's Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia wants the bigger name. We've already gotten Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We can't go through that again. And Logan Paul brings name value to the product, which means that Saudi's like, yeah, we want Logan Paul, even though Triple H asked, who's Logan Paul? It's one of those things. So Saudi, thanks for this main event. But if you are building up Roman Reigns, you can't let a guy in his third wrestling match take you to the limit, 10, 15, 20 minutes. This needs to be, okay, Logan Paul gets that one lucky punch. Everybody's shocked, thinking it happens. Roman Reigns kicks out too. And then Roman Reigns gets his feet under him and absolutely destroys Logan Paul. That's exactly what needs to happen for this match. Hunter asking how you see the Reigns-Paul match going. That's gotta be how it goes. You can't have Logan Paul go toe-to-toe with your big guy that you've been building up for 2 years, because if you do that, you've destroyed the credibility of this 2-year reign, and we're hopefully getting The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, what you've been building up for. You can't even let this be like a real match. And one match that I'm really excited for is the OC versus the Judgment Day. That was one of the best things about going to Monday Night Raw a couple weeks ago, was seeing OC and Judgment Day interact. By the way, kudos to the work that Carl Anderson is doing right now. It was pretty top notch. And Carl Anderson actually got the win over Damian Priest last night on Monday Night Raw. OC Judgment Day, this has legs, which makes me think Rhea Ripley has to get involved if she is there in Saudi Arabia. Saudi's weird about women coming, but we've broken that barrier. As of last week, I don't think we had a single women's match made, and now we have not one but two as of now. We still don't have Ronda Rousey on the card, which is shocking. It really is shocking. But I'm going Judgment Day here over the OC. Even though it is the OC's return match, you're building up Judgment Day right now with Damian Priest. You're building it up with Dominic Mysterio, who's doing fascinatingly well. Isaiah saying Rhea gets involved and some woman returns to fight Rhea. I don't know who. I don't know either. I'm not correlating anybody to team up with the OC to make it 4v4. This would be a perfect setup for Survivor Series that is next month. Actually, this month. We're in November, baby. It's No Shave November. But I'm not sure who. Maybe it happens when a woman comes the following night on Monday Night Raw, or 2 nights after. But then we have Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. They've already competed once, and they're going to compete again. I feel like this is going to be every Brock Lesnar match that you have ever seen. This is going to be take your big shots, do a lot of suplexes, try to outdo each other in big moves. And it's going to be who lands the final blow. I feel like Bobby Lashley needs this more, because I still feel like you could do Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley, maybe bring Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin up to reunite the Hurt Business, do a Hurt Business versus Bloodline War Games match, that would be off the chain. That's exactly what needs to happen. I've sold myself on that because we missed out on that rivalry 2 years ago when Vince quit the Hurt Business way too early. That had so much more that it could have offered. So Bobby Lashley needs the win over Brock Lesnar. This immediately puts him as a challenger for Roman Reigns. And then in terms of Warriors, we got Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in a steel cage match. I really love the build-up for this between their match at Extreme Rules and then McIntyre causing the car accident starting a SmackDown a few weeks ago involving Karrion Kross and Scarlett. And if there's anything you can do to always get personal, go after someone and a family member, or in this case, his spouse, Scarlett. So the car accident immediately elevated this match, elevated this feud that was already pretty good, and now they got a steel cage match. I'm a little torn. I feel like Drew McIntyre needs this more than Karrion Kross. Hear me out. Karrion Kross wins. Karrion Kross won his match at Extreme Rules. Drew McIntyre lost at Clash at the Castle. Drew McIntyre lost at Extreme Rules. And considering Clash at the Castle and Crown Jewel are two of the bigger events, Drew McIntyre really needs a win to get back in the good graces of the fans. And then I'm really impressed with the caliber of matches that we have on the card, other than Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. But it's the celeb factor. I get it. LOL. But you have Lesnar, Lashley. You have McIntyre, Kross. And this kind of feels like a show that Vince would put together just because of the size of the competitors. And you have Braun Strowman versus Omos. I'm really torn. It feels like they're building up Omos. Braun Strowman looks smaller than Omos. Omos can't really wrestle. That's where Braun Strowman is going to have to carry this match. I feel like it really needs to be like the Lesnar and Lashley match. You can't put them back to back on the card, or it'll be like, okay, we just saw this. So one's going to have to open the show, maybe in the first 2-3 matches, and the other one's going to have to go immediately before Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. Isaiah saying that Strowman versus Omos feels like it's going to be Goldberg versus Taker. Omos is kind of sluggish. He can't wrestle. He's not going to wow you in the ring. So you really have to protect him. That's why he was with AJ Styles for such a long time. I feel like they broke that up really early because Omos is not ready. And I don't think Strowman, as good as he is, can't carry Omos in the ring in terms of wrestling. So it's going to be big, sluggish punches. And Omos probably beats Braun Strowman. Or Braun Strowman can use his amazing strength to pick Omos up, slam him, and actually beat Omos and become a big baby face. Also, somebody who can challenge Roman Reigns if you don't do the Bobby Lashley route right now. Bianca Belair versus Bayley. Told you we have not one, but 2 women's matches now. Bianca Belair defended the title against Bayley. A couple weeks ago, went to Raw. Bianca Belair and Bayley were the main event. Dad's like, is this for a title? I'm like, I don't think so. And Dad's like, this is weird to have Bayley go over and not be for the title. Well, this set it up. This set up Bayley versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. And you really got to give it to Bayley. Bianca is doing really well right now. A lot of the fans love her in Charlotte and Dallas, where they had the event last night. I just feel like you can't have Bayley lose not once, but twice on pay-per-view after her return. You're going to have to give her the title at some point and let Damage Control run it into WrestleMania season, because we got Survivor Series, we got the Royal Rumble, we got WrestleMania, Elimination Chambers in there. And then Bayley's counterparts, Isaiah saying Bayley needs to win after Damage Control lost yesterday. Exactly. Damage Control losing the titles in the main event of Raw By the way, kudos for the women main eventing. I think 2-3 weeks in a row now on Monday Night Raw, but they lost to Alexa Bliss and a returning Asuka. I was like, wow, you're going to start playing hot potato with these women's tag titles. I don't know if that's the best idea. You've had Damage Control lose the opening match to Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez when the titles were vacant, and then you have them lose to Alexa and Asuka. I don't like it. I don't like it. Damage Control really needs the titles to elevate that group. I also don't see Alexa and Asuka losing the titles this early either. But I don't know who they could lose it to eventually either, unless you pair up Sonya Deville with somebody, or you could pair Shayna Baszler or Ronda Rousey. They've been teasing that on SmackDown. But all of Damage Control needs to win. I'm ready for them to have a very Evolution or Bloodline like where they grab all the titles. Speaking of the Bloodline, we got the Usos versus the Brawling Brutes. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later on the show, but the Usos, I feel like they were going to hold these titles for a pretty long time. I could totally see I could see the Usos losing this probably Royal Rumble time frame. I don't expect them to lose this Saturday at Crown Jewel against Pete Dunne, Butch, whatever you want to call them, and Ridge Holland, the Brawling Brutes. But man, this is going to be a good match. This is going to be a banger. We need Sato or Johnny on to talk about the banger of a match. But Usos win this one. It's coming. Their loss is coming. They're going to drop these titles here in about 3 months. And it could be to Sami Zayn and either Solo Sikoa or Kevin Owens. Either one would work. And probably what I'm most excited for, Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt has been announced for the Saudi Arabia show. It's going to be awesome. Isaiah saying losing in January would be a huge foreshadow for Reigns at Mania. I'm seeing it. I'm just putting it out there. I'm seeing the Usos losing in January, probably Royal Rumble time frame. Get another loop in the story of the great story they're telling with the Bloodline. Yeah. I'm excited for Bray Wyatt. Excited to see where this Uncle Howdy stuff goes. If you watched SmackDown this past week, you'll know what I'm talking about. But when we come back, we're returning our beloved segment of sports entertainment Spitfire, going through WWE, AEW, NXT, Japan. We're going to be talking about Japan even when we come back after the break. Stay tuned with us on YouTube and Facebook Live. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis. Crown Jewel this Saturday is going to be a great event. We got a lot of people watching here on Facebook, YouTube alike, dropping in the comments so far. Ben, Isaiah, Hunter, thank you so much. And with Sports Entertainment Spitfire, if you don't remember, a few weeks ago, we did this with Johnny, and it was a great time. We'll have Johnny back on the show here soon. He started a new job and getting his legs under him like that. But what we have right now is Sports Entertainment Spitfire said we're going to talk about the Bloodline, and it was so great. If you had not watched SmackDown and the segment between the Bloodline, Sami Zayn finally made Jey Uso break character in the middle of the ring, made all the Bloodline characters break character. It was awesome. And it was over the word Usi. Like, they've gotten the word Usi over. They've gotten the word Usi over, and it was funny, guys. It was hilarious. Hunter, thanks for the break picture. He likes it. I made it, so I'll take that. But they're having so much fun with this. Sami Zayn went on record of admitting he tries to get them to break character, and usually this is frowned upon, right? But it works because the Bloodline is so serious. Sami Zayn is this comedic character, and he gets it over. One of the comedic characters in WWE returned this week with Emma. She's otherwise known on the indie circuit as Tennille Dashwood. She had a time in Impact Wrestling. I'm very reserved about this return. She came back to face Ronda Rousey in her open challenge. So I'm glad it wasn't just a random woman like Shotzi or Aaliyah. Aaliyah's injured right now. But you gave somebody new and fresh, which makes this anything can be expected in WWE now. They have taken that AEW perspective and have totally flipped it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not expecting her to do much. I feel like she's a good enhancement talent. I just feel like I have to compare her to Billie Kay in terms of how they move around in the ring. It's very awkward. I also don't know if Emma's going. It doesn't look like she's taking back her bubbly gimmick that she had in NXT. It's not the Evolution gimmick that lasted 2 weeks with Vince McMahon. And I think 2 of those whole weeks were vignettes. Wasn't even her actual. But it just doesn't seem like a big move. So we'll see. But WWE's done a lot with the Forbidden Door. This is AEW's move, okay? AEW usually holds the Forbidden Door. They made a pay-per-view event all about the Forbidden Door, having WWE versus Japan. WWE obviously signed Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows. While Carl Anderson was the never openweight champion in Japan, and he hasn't dropped the title. They're doing a storyline. Carl Anderson double booked, obviously showing up at Crown Jewel. His title match in Japan canceled. They're making a story out of this, and Carl Anderson probably wrestles at Wrestle Kingdom in January. But now they have of all matches, we're going to get Shinsuke Nakamura versus the Great Muta. It's historic. So what's going to happen is at the new year for, I believe it's Pro Wrestling Noah, if I'm correct on that, it's going to be January 1st. The Great Muta, obviously on his retirement tour, and they've announced Shinsuke Nakamura as the person wrestling him. Obviously, I guess this is a day one, and apparently there was a disagreement first, and Nakamura persisted in negotiating with a new regime after Vince McMahon retired. The final agreement was reached on the 26th of this month, and it seems that the tenacity has paid off, which was an article kind of posted for Pro Wrestling Noah to Tokyo Sports, actually. And that was the translation of that, because it's a real Forbidden Door. It's like WWE doesn't usually allow this stuff to happen, and they need to. They 100% need to, because, man, this is a great match. I'm glad they're allowing Shinsuke Nakamura to do this, because obviously he's looked up to the Great Muta. We're ending the time of his career, and it's so fitting, man. It is so fitting, and this kind of changes the game. I hope people understand that. It changes the game with Triple H allowing Shinsuke Nakamura to go have this dream match. Do I think WWE and AEW will get to the point to do this little dream matches? They wouldn't allow Billy Gunn on the DX anniversary a few weeks ago. I don't know if they ever get there, but for WWE to allow Mickie James to come in for the Royal Rumble as Impact Women's Champion in January under Vince McMahon, which is more shocking, to have Nakamura go to Pro Wrestling Noah and compete against Great Muta, to have, as of now, some people in WWE are fulfilling obligations they already committed to before returning WWE, like wrestling conventions. This is huge. I don't know any other Forbidden Door opportunities per se. I feel like Akira Tozawa would be a good one to go to Japan. I feel like, and that you can call me crazy, if they could figure out a way to have one or two things. First one, not as crazy. It could actually happen. Second one would be unreal. The OC's here. AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Finn Balor's doing his Judgment Day. Why not have somebody from Bullet Club like Jay White or Juice Robinson or Tama Tonga? You have people there you could put in. You could have them come to WWE for a match. You could have the OC go to Japan and reunite the Bullet Club for a night. Wrestle Kingdom maybe would be a really good opportunity. And then in return, the crazy part. In the Royal Rumble match, Shinsuke Nakamura wrestling, dominating, whatever. And then immediately after, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. It's a dream, right? It sounds like a dream. It sounds way too crazy to actually happen. Kazuchika Okada makes his first ever WWE appearance in the Royal Rumble, setting up Shinsuke Nakamura versus Kazuchika Okada at WrestleMania. That's all you gotta do. Okay, Okada's going to be great. I think he wants to stay in Japan. I think he wants to build that brand. I think he takes pride in that. But to have a WrestleMania moment against Shinsuke Nakamura, while Nakamura can still put together a good match, and you have Okada in there, that would be the match of the night. It probably wouldn't be talked about as much as Roman Reigns versus The Rock, but that is the way to go. And speaking of The Rock, his daughter, Ava Raine, debuted on NXT last week as part of the Schism and their fourth member. It's really weird. She took off the mask. I was like, this looks like, looks like her father completely. Isaiah saying that's out of WWE's creative mindset. That's why they listen to the show, right? I think Triple H has been listening to the show as he should, but that would be huge. Okada, Nakamura, we need it. And Ava Raine really needs the Schism too. I'm really like iffy, but you know, the future is bright. This is the first fourth generation WWE superstar. High Chief Peter Maivia, Rocky Johnson, The Rock, obviously Ava Raine now. I mean, the sky's hot. Sky's the limit for her. We'll see how it goes. And in a weird release this past week, WWE announced that they have parted ways. They have released Bodhi Hayward, which, if you don't know that name, Bodhi Hayward is a big part of Chase University. He's been the guy to really be the second one below Andre Chase. They have Bodhi, they had Thea Hale, and Bodhi just wasn't shown on camera in the classroom. Duke Hudson walks in on last Tuesday night and sits in Bodhi's seat. And Andre's like, well, if Bodhi doesn't want to show up, then, you know, Duke Hudson can sit in the seat. So I'm like, okay, Duke Hudson attacked Bodhi Hayward, kidnapped him, stole him, whatever. We're going to see this story play out. And then it wasn't until like maybe an hour or two before I go on and I read Bodhi Hayward has been released, along with other names, but none of the names you've seen on TV. Bodhi Hayward being the big one. I was like, really? Really? Okay. Well, that was interesting. But from a report with Bodhi Hayward, Brian Alvarez from Wrestling Observer Live said that all I'll say is, because I don't know all of the details, there's a lot of stuff going on. I guess the easiest way to describe it is apparently Bodhi was a handful. So it wasn't just, well, let's get rid of this guy or whatever. But I did hear from multiple people. This is Brian Alvarez saying it from Wrestling Observer Live. I did hear from multiple people that it wasn't just, we're going to cut some folks. We're going to cut this person who was right in the middle of a storyline. There was more to Bodhi's story. That's really all that Brian Alvarez can say, because Brian doesn't know what the more is. But, you know, got a bunch of guys and whatever, and they're in Florida, and there's a loop, and who knows what can happen. That was what Brian Alvarez said from Wrestling Observer Live. If Bodhi squandered his chance in NXT, that's really sad. He had the look, kind of remind me of a Griff Garrison look in AEW. But wow, I did not expect that to happen. Bodhi Hayward released in NXT. And then we got AEW. Okay. the big thing talked about right now is the locker room atmosphere in AEW. Wardlow commented when, Cody Rhodes left AEW to go to WWE. He was a guest on the ESPR wrestling podcast. And, he just said, I don't know if I'd say letdown because I love Cody. This is Wardlow talking, and I'll support whatever he wants to do with his life. So I never hold that against him. And I told him that. Wardlow personally does miss him and presence in the locker room. He does have a very positive presence backstage talking about Cody Rhodes. And he was somebody that Wardlow felt comfortable going to speak to. But he missed having him around. Cody leaves in the spring. All of a sudden, CM Punk, he's here. All the drama backstage. Punk suspended. Daniel suspended. Nakazawa suspended. The Elite, the EVP suspended. And Chris Jericho even, went to CM Punk's locker room that night, right between CM Punk leaving that podium for the media scrum and Jericho showing up on the media scrum. Jericho apparently went to CM Punk's locker room and told him to his face, "You're a cancerous locker room and you're detrimental to the guys back here." And CM Punk wasn't having that, obviously. But Jericho didn't engage in a fight, so he's still on. He's still been on TV doing his Ocho, the Ring of Jericho. But it's a thing. Like, I don't know if Cody Rhodes held that locker room together or if CM Punk just flipped a switch. If this still happens with Cody here, I think so. But man, this has been big. And then you show on Dynamite this past week, the AEW logo and the E disappear. And you're showing clips from the press conference to announce All Elite Wrestling back in January 2019, I believe. And they disappear. And big moments with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, they disappear from the images. I don't know what story they're telling. I'm glad they're involving this in a story. But this is going to be really cool. Obviously, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks coming back to AEW. CM Punk might be bought out in his contract. We talked about that on last week's show if you'd like to go back and watch that in more detail. But we'll see how this locker room continues to improve. Jericho, Danielson, Mox have really stepped up as leaders in the locker room for the time being. And we've had a lot of people comment on the Facebook and YouTube, showing their comments up on the screen. If you want to have your comment up on Facebook or YouTube, just send in the comments, flash it on the screen maybe, and we can discuss it. But last topic I have for Sports Entertainment Spitfire before our other beloved segment, Rosebud and Thorn after the break, is the Firm turning on MJF, Stokely Hathaway, along with Ethan Page, Lee Moriarty, W. Morrissey, the Gun Club. They all turn on MJF. MJF came across as a face on last week's Dynamite, and I just want to clear this. This has to be clear. MJF is not a baby face, okay? He's saying that he's not going to use the Dynamite Diamond Ring. He's had his heel faction turn against him. This isn't happening, guys. This isn't going to happen. MJF's going to get to Full Gear. He's not going to put on the Dynamite Diamond Ring. He's going to put on William Regal's brass knuckles, close his fists, knock Jon Moxley out, and win the AEW World Championship. We've seen MJF try to play this face card before, going back to his best bud, Cody Rhodes, going back to CM Punk and showing mercy towards him ahead of their dog collar match. It's a ploy we've seen, but he gets good at it. He gets better at each and every time, which is really saying something. But we got to get into a break. When we come back, we're going to do our beloved Rosebud and Thorn. We have a stacked Dynamite, a big title match on SmackDown, and we're going to talk a little bit about tonight's NXT since we have a Tuesday night edition of the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. All of that after the break. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. I am your host, Michael Davis. We're on live right now with Facebook, YouTube. We've had a lot of interaction with our viewers. Thank you so much for listening in. You can ask your questions. We can get them in. You can also follow us on our social media, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, getting those followers up. But now it is time for your beloved segment, the Rose, the Bud, the Thorn. And for our Rose, I have to give it up for comedy and wrestling. I over the last week, just good stuff. Chad Gable basically is this generation's Kurt Angle with just having the look, being this amateur wrestler, and just doing the goofiest stuff. You saw Chad Gable and Otis come out in like Chippendale outfits, dancing funky around the ring. I'm like, that's Kurt Angle to a T. Okay. Then you have Sami Zayn breaking the Bloodline's character the entire time. And the Bloodline can't stop laughing while Sami Zayn's getting the crowd to chant Usi. And then you have R-Truth, who has reemerged. He returned last week in Charlotte on Monday Night Raw, showed up on NXT the following night. Then he went to Monday Night Raw last night, and he was just doing funny stuff. And now all of a sudden he's going to be on NXT tonight facing Grayson Waller after their interaction on NXT last week. Got a call, so oh well, we're still on air. Thanks, Trent, for that phone call while I record. But yeah, Rose comedy is great, and we need more R-Truth right now. My Thorn though, FTR. FTR should be wrestling the Acclaimed right now, two of the highest teams in AEW, and they dropped the ball. And Swerve in Our Glory win. They're really teasing Swerve in Our Glory breaks up. Swerve going more heel route. Keith Lee trying to be a face. I feel like Johnny mentioned this a few weeks ago. I was like, now Swerve and Keith Lee are heels. And they're like, is Keith Lee a heel? I'm like, yeah, because they had to turn mid-match because the crowd was so engaged with the Acclaimed at All Out in Chicago. It's starting to not look like this right now with Swerve in Our Glory having some issues this past Friday on Rampage, but we really need FTR to win the AEW titles. They've lost the IWGP tag titles, which kind of loses the prestige of belt collecting that they were going to have. They really lost their opportunity there. They could still reclaim it, which I highly recommend, but with the Bud, WWE has saved T-Bar, who is otherwise known as Donovan Divakovic, and he's getting repackaged. He's going to NXT. I absolutely love this because I call him Dijak because Dijakovic, he is money. He is golden. Just so excited for his NXT repackage. Hopefully he'll show up tonight on NXT. It's a special Tuesday edition of the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. But tomorrow night on Dynamite, you got Jon Moxley versus Lee Moriarty. That match got made last week on Rampage. Moxley obviously going to run through Moriarty. Moxley's probably going to feud with the Firm. Maybe even MJF wrestle the Firm members leading up to Full Gear. But this is still 100% in the corner of MJF, just playing mind games right now. You have Darby Allin versus Jay Lethal. That feud really needs to end now. I feel like Darby Allin's hinted towards moving away from the ring for a little bit and coming back reinvented. Reinvented. He can repackage. He can, just recalibrate himself. He puts himself through a lot physically. Who knows mentally what it looks like, but Darby versus Jay Lethal, have Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and this big guy who follows them around just absolutely level Darby Allin. Sting's not there either. Keep Darby off TV for 2 months. Have him come back at the start of the new year would be a perfect setup. You have a couple segments. You have Billy Gunn's birthday bash. He didn't get the DX celebration, so I guess he gets the, AEW birthday celebration. Saraya and Britt Baker have a sit-down interview with, I believe, Renee Paquette. Yeah, and that's going to be awesome. Anytime you can get Saraya and Britt Baker on the mic with Renee facilitating, I'm in. Saraya hasn't had a good presence on the mic in the last few weeks, but if she has Renee by her side and Britt Baker, I feel like this could be carried and could be good. We have also not one, not two, not three. Yeah, LeBron. We have 4 title matches that are set up. Chris Jericho versus a former Ring of Honor World Champion. I've thought about this. I don't know who they're putting up against Chris Jericho to have the Ring of Honor World Champion. But Jericho's going to defend his Ring of Honor World Championship. He's going to win. And I'm just blanking on who he could compete against. AEW doesn't want the Briscoes showing up, so it kind of rules them out. Could do Christopher Daniels. Daniels already a member of the AEW roster, wouldn't be hard. I don't see Matt Taven. Matt Taven's a heel right now. I feel like with them not announcing it, I feel like they could do PCO, which I'm not a big fan of PCO. If you are, that's fine. That's whatever. But it's probably going to be PCO if I had to guess. Jade Cargill defend the TBS title and her undefeated streak against Maria Shafir. They've built Maria Shafir to go over Jade Cargill. It's not happening. Cargill wins. And Orange Cat, this is going to be a great triple threat match. Orange Cassidy defend the All Atlantic title against Luchasaurus, against Rey Fenix in a triple threat. And I'll be honest, AEW steered themselves away from the triple threat matches. They did. And over the last year or so, they've gotten more accustomed to doing those. I'm not a fan of the triple threat. I feel like that set them apart from other companies. But this is going to be a good match. Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, Phoenix. Orange Cassidy wins because they're not going to end his reign this soon. I don't know when Jungle Boy comes back to face Luchasaurus. Phoenix involved with the Death Triangle. Orange Cassidy wins this pretty solidly. And just announced, like just a couple hours ago, Samoa Joe defended the ROH TV title against Brian Cage. Joe wins that one. I don't know where Wardlow comes involved with all of this, but you got the Embassy. You got Powerhouse Hobbs potentially join the Embassy. He showed up to help out on Friday Night's Rampage. It's a pretty stacked Dynamite. Just going to say. You also have on SmackDown, you have Gunther versus Rey Mysterio. Haven't looked at spoilers. Apparently, they taped this show last week because of Crown Jewel the next day. I'm giving it to Gunther, obviously, but where's Rey Mysterio go from here is a question. Also, not sure why you don't put this at Crown Jewel. Maybe it's because they needed something for SmackDown to stand out for people to watch. You got Liv Morgan versus Sonya Deville. Liv should win, or she could lose and go insane. Either way. Tonight on NXT, you got Mandy Rose's 1-year celebration. Kudos to Mandy Rose. She has reinvented herself. It has been awesome to see her 1-year reign. Toxic Attraction, like she's carried the NXT 2.0 brand on her back. Her, Braun Breaker, been the vocal points of that brand. Really good. IC Jones, I felt like was going to be a staple of NXT, but he had an injury. He returns tonight on NXT, and hopefully they still have good things for him. Hopefully he hasn't lost a step. And then we have R-Truth versus Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller goes over, but it's going to be comedy. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be fun. And that is it for the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast on a good old Tuesday evening. Perhaps we'll join again on Monday. I'm losing my voice now. But that is all we have for you. Also, check out my very own Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast shirt. We might be putting a shirt out. Who knows? You'll have to stay tuned for that. But everyone, enjoy NXT tonight, Dynamite tomorrow, SmackDown Friday, Crown Jewels Saturday, and we'll be catching all you up next week on Mic Drop Monday. See y'all.